All right, well, good morning again. I have to say it because it's written in my sermon notes. It says, good morning. It's the first thing I say. And you're supposed to respond. So let's try again. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, I'll check that off. That was done. All right, so we're in week 2 of a 7-week series exploring the I am statements made by Jesus in the Gospel of John. By examining each of these statements, a picture begins to form, or a portrait, if you will, of who Jesus really is. And if you haven't had a chance yet, we invite you into the crossings after the service to take a look at our I am gallery, where our artists from the church have created works of art that represent one of the I am statements. So we want to say thank you to those artists who contributed something for that. It's really amazing. And we want to say a big thanks to Lynn Sundahl, who painted this up here for us and one for the other worship center. Really great work. If you see Lynn Sundahl, you know, give her a slap on the back and tell her good job. But this has been an exciting and creative way to engage with this series. If you are inspired by one of the messages and you want to create something for our gallery in the weeks to come, we want to say feel free. We'd love to add your I am art into the mix, so just bring it on in and we'll put it up. There's some new items that were added this week, so make sure you head over and check those out. All right, well, last week, Pastor Perry kicked off the sermon series with a portrait of sustenance as we bit into Jesus' statement, I am the bread of life. This week, we'll be taking a look at Jesus' claim in John 8, where he said, I am the light of the world.
I am a woman.
I am a man.
I am middle class.
I'm working class.
I'm just classy.
I am a professional student.
I am kind of directionless.
I am the light of the world.
I am dedicated.
I'm just trying to find a place where I can sit in the quiet.
I'm trying to decide what to do with the rest of my life.
Yeah, I am blind. But I want to see. I feel like everything's dark around me, like the world has no detail. I want to see the face of God, but I struggle to see through the haze.
Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but have the light of life. I am the light of the world.
In the beginning, God made the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void. Darkness covered everything. Is anyone else a little uncomfortable right now? Especially the person who just walked in right now is like, what's going on? Sorry. We'll get the lights up in a second. Just stay, don't move. Darkness has a way of doing that to us, doesn't it? It makes us feel uncomfortable. Every one of us, at some point in our lives, if we're honest, have been scared of the dark. Some are scared right now. Every night when I put my kids to bed, they always ask me to turn on a nightlight for them. And if I'm being honest, I still sleep with the nightlight on myself. Don't judge. It's not all the time. Come on, I'm an adult. It's just when my wife's out of town. You laugh, but it's true. Darkness makes us uneasy. It makes our minds start imagining things that aren't there. It confuses us. It makes us feel lost and helpless and without hope. And just when we think we can't take any more of this wretched darkness, we hear the 4 most beautiful words ever spoken. Let there be light. The darkness scatters. With the power of his word, God speaks light and life into existence. John 1 verse 4 says, in him was life, and the life was the light of men. But soon, the darkness crept its way back in. Sin invaded the world and cast us back into the dark, wandering, lost, and confused, blind to the light around us. But verse 5 says, the light shines in the darkness, and the light could not be overpowered. Though the darkness rages against the light could not be overtaken, nor overwhelmed. The darkness has no power over the light. Well, in John chapter 8, verse 12, Jesus said, I am the light of the world. He who follows me will not walk in the darkness, but will have the light of life. I don't want to walk in the darkness. It's creepy. But sometimes I feel stuck. I feel like I'm still living blind to the light of life, looking for some kind of nightlight in the dark. I long for illumination. Well, I thought a good place to start for that would be the Word. So this week, as I was preparing for this message, I was reading through the different references to light in the Gospel of John. And God kept drawing me back to chapter 1 for some reason. I kept wanting to move on to chapter 8 since that was the text I was supposed to be preaching on this morning. But God just kept drawing me back to chapter 1. He wouldn't let me move on. So, excuse me, as I was reading through John 1 again and again and again, verses 9 through 12 finally jumped out at me, where it basically says that the true light came into the world to illuminate every one of us, but the world wouldn't see. The light tried to spread to his own people, but the people wouldn't receive it. As a result, much of the world still remains in darkness, unchanged, blind to the light of the world. So here's what I believe God wanted to show me in these verses, and what I think he wants each of us to get out of these verses today. Many people encountered Jesus, the light of the world. Some remained in the darkness. Others embraced the light. Today we're going to talk about what made the difference between the two. The first step out of the darkness is to know the light. John 1, 9 through 10 says, "There was the true light, which coming into the world enlightens every man. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him." The true light came into the world, but the world didn't know him. They were blind. Now, I should say in the Gospel of John, there's many references, blindness is referenced quite frequently, but there are two kinds of blind people. One, those who know they're blind, and two, those who don't know they're blind, but are still blind all the same. So in John chapter 8, we find Jesus speaking to a group of Pharisees and religious leaders who are unaware of their blindness. Now, by this point, the word about Jesus has gotten out, and many have come to see for themselves what all the fuss is about. And the religious leaders begin to question Jesus on the law in hopes to trap him so that they can discredit him. Well, Jesus sees their questions for what they truly are: doubt. So he speaks to them in a way that they should understand. Verse 12. Then Jesus again spoke to them, saying, "I am the light of the world. He who follows me will not walk in the darkness, but will have the light of life." Jesus responds to their doubts with a clear statement of his identity. "I am the light of the world. Follow me, and I'll lead you out of the darkness into the light of life." Now, I have to imagine that Jesus thought on some level, these are well-educated, faithful, and highly religious men that I'm talking to. They all teach about the coming Messiah. They all have the prophecies memorized. Surely they will get what's happening here. Surely they of all people will know me for who I am. I even use the holy name of God, I am, so that they know the great I am has come and is standing here before them as the true light to scatter the darkness once again. They don't. The Pharisees don't get it. In verse 13, we see their response. The Pharisees said to him, "You're testifying about yourself. Your testimony is not true." They respond with disbelief. From this point on, the religious leaders continue to question Jesus, and Jesus continues to respond with even more clarity on who he is and how he was sent from the Father and what he came to do in the first place. But the Pharisees just aren't getting it. And in verse 19, Jesus says to them, "You know neither me nor my Father. If you knew me, you would know my Father also." He's saying to them, the light of the world, the one you've been waiting for, is standing right in front of you, and you don't even know it. You don't know the Father. You don't know me. You can't see. You're blind. pride, call it stupidity, but they just couldn't put two and two together. I have to imagine it was just extremely frustrating for Jesus. I mean, these guys, these Pharisees, these religious leaders, they're like the superheroes of the faith, and they aren't getting it. I mean, it's like Superman standing right in front of them, but he's wearing glasses, so they keep calling him Clark Kent. As if you can't recognize. I mean, that's always bothered me. Has it ever bothered anybody else that it's just glasses? Why can't they tell? In the movie, he parts his hair on the other side. Ooh, where'd you go? Drives me crazy. Anyway, but I have to imagine it was pretty frustrating. Probably, I know Jesus would respond. For me, I'd reached this crazy frustration level that might look a little something like this next clip we're going to watch, but I got to set this up first. This is from a parody of the most recent Batman films. In the scene we're about to see, the evil villain Two-Face has kidnapped Commissioner Gordon's son, and Batman has come to save the day. But he's having a really hard time figuring out why Two-Face has two faces. Now, I warn you, this is a ridiculous clip. It is nonsensical, but it is a small window into my warped sense of humor. But I promise I will tie it all together at the end. So, let's take a look.
Because I'm Harvey Dent.
Nice try, Two-Face, but your tricks won't work on me. I'm the world's greatest detective.
Batman, Harvey Dent is Two-Face.
Batman, remember you went to save Rachel, but it wasn't Rachel, it was Harvey Dent? Remember half of his face? This half of his face was in the gasoline? Just stop me when you start remembering this.
I want you to know, I'm completely lost.
Hey, you really don't remember any of that? Half my face melted, and now I'm insane.
Full disclosure, it's kind of been a crazy day, and this shit's really hard. I gotta go in and out.
This is the guy that beat the Joker. Yeah, I don't know how he did it.
I used my skills that I learned in the mountains.
Batman, listen. Harvey Dent is Two-Face. They're the same person.
So Harvey used to be Two-Face.
I am Two-Face. I have two faces. Okay? I'm Harvey Dent, and I'm Two-Face. I'm Two-Face, and I'm Harvey Dent. Okay, you know what? Let's start over. What do you see?
Harvey Face.
Now what do you see?
Scary Face.
Okay. Put them both together. What do you see?
Two-Face.
Yes! Yes!
What have you done with Harvey and Scary Face? They've done nothing to you.
You're laughing, so that means you have a warped sense of humor too, so congratulations to yourself. You're as messed up as me. Two-Face is standing right in front of Batman, the world's greatest detective, who used the skills he learned in the mountains. That's my favorite part, I don't know why. But Batman can't seem to put two and two together. He doesn't know him. Do you know him? I'm not talking about Two-Face, obviously. I mean, if you were face to face with the light of the world, would you recognize him? Would you know him if you saw him? Would doubt or disbelief get in the way of that? Would spiritual arrogance or pride keep you from seeing the light of the world? To step out of the darkness, we need to know the light. We need to know about him. We need to be in the Word, learning about what he's done, learning about how he asks us to live, learning the kinds of things that he would be saying to us. But that's not it. We also need to spend time just talking with him and actually listening back. We need to spend time getting to know him. The Pharisees knew the law, but they didn't know the light. We need to know both. And once we know the light, we need to receive the light. That's the second point on the back of the bulletin, to receive the light. John 1:11 says that he came to his own, and those who were his own did not receive him. Right after Jesus' encounter with the Pharisees in the temple, we find him and his disciples passing by a man who's been blind since birth. And the disciples ask Jesus, whose fault is it that this man is blind? Assuming that his blindness is the result of sin in either him or his parents, that he's been cursed. Well, Jesus replies, neither. This man's blind so that the works, the glory of God, might be displayed in him. Jesus then once again declares himself to be the light of the world, and then proceeds to heal the blind man by spitting on the ground and rubbing the spit and dirt in his eyes and telling him to go wash up. The man is miraculously healed. And once again, the word gets back to the Pharisees. The Pharisees bring the man in for questioning. And once again, they're asking questions about the identity of Jesus. They still don't get it. Here's what I find interesting about this story. The blind man never once asked Jesus who he is or why he's choosing to help him. He doesn't even ask why Jesus is rubbing spit dirt into his eyes. He just allows Jesus to do what he came to do. He doesn't ask questions. When Jesus tells him to go wash, he doesn't. This was a man that spent his entire life up until that point shunned by those around him, considered one of the lowest of society, cursed by blindness since birth. But maybe it was a lifetime in the dark that allowed him to see the true light when it came. Something that the Pharisees couldn't see. Even though their eyes were physically open. Pharisees had learned to settle for artificial light. The artificial light of their stature in the community. The artificial light of their religious rituals, or the law removed from grace. Artificial law would never be a permanent replacement for the true light of the world. Well, this past Thursday, I celebrated a birthday. I turned 18 years old. Why is that funny? I don't understand. Yes, I look horrible for my age. I get it. It was a gorgeous day, so I decided to take my dog out for a walk to enjoy the weather. And I got a little bit sunburned on my cheeks and my nose because I've been hiding indoors all winter and wasn't ready for the sun. But getting sunburned on my birthday reminded me actually of my 14th birthday 4 years ago. When I turned 14, my parents took our family on a vacation to Maui, but because I am clearly a melanin-challenged individual, my mom was concerned that I would get a righteous sunburn in the tropical sun of Hawaii. So she made me go to a tanning bed with her a couple of times before we left. Very embarrassing for an 8th grade boy like myself. I heard Keelan goes weekly, but for me, that was a little embarrassing. But I went because she made me. My mom's sitting right here, right? You made me go. Please tell everybody I did not willingly go to a tanning bed. She forced me to go. And of course, so I get there for my first session and they say, let's put, you're a newbie, let's put it on the lowest setting, maybe like 10 minutes, no problem. And of course, I got sunburned from the tanning bed. That is how white I am. Well, my mom still made me go a couple times, telling me it was for the best. I needed to develop some resistance against the sun. All right, so then flash forward to the day before my birthday, and we're in Maui, and we decided to spend the day surfing, and it was my first time attempting it. So we rented a styrofoam-topped longboard, and I spent hours in the ocean on that day trying to learn how to surf. Now, I did wear sunscreen, but I was out there so long that all the sunscreen washed off. By that night, I had the worst sunburn I have ever had in my entire life. I couldn't move, I couldn't wear clothes, I couldn't lie down, I couldn't do anything without screaming in pain from this horrible sunburn. I spent my entire 14th birthday in Maui alone in a hotel room because I didn't want to ever see the sun again. That artificial light in no way prepared me for the power of the true light. There's no substitute for the true light. So when the blind man encountered the true light, maybe he recognized Jesus for who he truly was. And maybe he couldn't totally explain it, but he knew enough to receive the power of the true light. The Pharisees were so accustomed to their artificial light, to the law, their rituals, just doing the right things, their regulations, that they missed the true light for what it truly was. They wanted to control the lights. They wanted to use their tanning beds and the artificial lamps. But all they did was get burned. Jesus said, forget about all that stuff. Just come to me. And because of my love for you, I give you grace. And maybe in this situation, maybe grace is the sunscreen, that if I would have kept it on, I would have been able to stay in the power of the true light longer. Maybe the sunscreen is grace. And he's telling the Pharisees, if you would have just come to me and let it be about grace, you wouldn't get burned. But they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it his way. All they could do was reject it. Reject Jesus. Though they were the ones that should have embraced him, they pushed him away and settled for fake light and even more darkness. So what about you? If you saw the light, would you know him? If you know him, would you receive him? Would you let Jesus come do in your life what he came to do? Or would you push him away? Settle for the artificial life to get you through, and the artificial light to get you through? Would you settle for the artificial light of self-help, or financial success, or popularity, or quick fixes and addictions? I think this is the hardest step to take, because it means that we have to move on from our faith being only about head knowledge, and we have to be willing to let Christ into our hearts. Let him do what he came to do. Preach the good news to the poorest parts of our heart. Set the captives free. Restore sight to the blind, both those that know they're blind and those who haven't realized it yet. When the true light comes in, there isn't room for any artificial light. So we have to know the light. We have to receive the light. And lastly, we have to be the light. Now, John chapter 1 isn't all bad news. It says the world didn't know the light, and his people didn't all receive him. But some did. Verse 12, but as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God. For those that know the light and receive the light into their hearts, the light does what it came to do. It transforms us from God's creation into children of God. And for those that are tied up or are tired of living in darkness, know this: for a little while longer, the light is among you. Walk while you have the light, so that darkness will not overtake you. Walk in the light, where the darkness has no power, and where artificial light has no point, no purpose. And remember that the light of the world came down to us and called us to himself. He set us free from the power of darkness by his death on the cross. The Pharisees thought they had extinguished the light, and the prince of darkness thought he had won. But when all seemed lost and the world was at its darkest, the true light returned to light the way home.
13 Commander Jim Lovell has more time in space, almost 24 days already, than any other man. And I asked him recently if he ever was scared.
Oh, I've had an engine flame out a few times in an aircraft and was kind of curious as to whether it was going to light up again, things of that nature. But they seem to work out.
Is there a specific instance in an airplane emergency when you can recall fear?
Well, I tell you, I remember this one time, I'm in a Banshee at night in combat conditions, so there's no running lights on the carrier. It was a Shangri-La when we were in the Sea of Japan, and my radar had jammed, and my homing signal was gone because somebody in Japan was actually using the same frequency, and so it was leading me away from where I was supposed to be. And I'm looking down at that big black ocean, so I flip on my map light, and then suddenly, zap, everything shorts out right there in the cockpit. All my instruments are gone, my lights are gone, and I can't even tell now what my altitude is. I know I'm running out of fuel, so I'm thinking about ditching in the ocean. And I look down there, and then in the darkness, there's this green trail. It's like a long carpet that's just laid out right beneath me. And it was the algae, right? It was that phosphorescent stuff that gets churned up in the wake of a big ship, and it was just leading me home. And if my cockpit lights hadn't shorted out, there's no way I'd have ever been able to see that. So you never know what events are going to transpire to get you home.
Well, just like Jim Lovell in that clip, there are those all around us flying blind. The artificial light has failed, and they've lost hope. But when all is darkest, when we're left broken and blind, only then can we see the true light guiding us home. Chapter 12, verse 35. He who walks in the darkness does not know where he goes. While you have the light, believe in the light, so that you may become sons of light. If you know him and receive him, would the world see you? We are the glowing algae. We are the sons and daughters of light, pointing the way home to the light of the world.